You know what's a recession indicator? When we have to apply to over 1,000 jobs for the possibility of being interviewed for around 3 or 5 of them to then hopefully have a chance of having one job. One miserable job in this late stage capitalism hellscape that we're living in. In today's podcast, I want to run us through retail hell. I am 28 years old, but last year when I moved back to Illinois, I found myself working a cashier job at DD's Discount, which is the physical store version of Shein. Wait, no, I take that back because Shein did open a store in France. That's a whole drama. But DD's Discount, the Midwest love life of the American mom on a low budget. So they sell fast fashion for families. It's incredibly cheap. It's incredibly fastly made. So that stuff is already falling apart. You can literally look at the seams and see rips in it already in the store. Like, it's already ripped in the store. I just want to note, no shame for those that take on jobs in the mall and retail spots. Like, we're all doing what we can given the moment of struggle. So the thing is, with these jobs, they're incredibly low wage. I probably was paid around $15 an hour for most of the retail jobs that I've ever worked. If you get paid $16, girl, you are lucky. But I've seen minimum wage rates of like $7 in other states. I don't know how we're surviving, but the thing is too, even with the low wage, they give you unstable schedules. Sometimes they gave me 5 hours, sometimes they gave me 10 hours, sometimes they gave me 15 hours, sometimes they gave me 20 hours. And I was like, where is my stable schedule at? But you know what they did give me? They gave me one of those standing mats that made the brutality of capitalism a bit more bearable. They also gave me a heavy lanyard for I don't know what reason, with so many keys I didn't even know what to do with. And then they would give me a walkie that would literally wrap around my waist. It would go up my chest, and then it would be attached to my ear, and I felt like I was just choking. And the thing is too, like, when you work in retail, they treat you like a machine, and they just expect you to show up whenever, to be super productive, to have no feelings, to have no thoughts, to not be a human when you clock in. And so I would find myself waking up at 7 in the morning. I would find myself back the next day at 5 p.m. and these would be varying shifts. So sometimes it was a 3-hour shift, sometimes it was a 5-hour shift, sometimes it was a 10-hour shift. And it just made me feel so cheap and disposable. And I'm sure a lot of people would agree that it is a brutal work. Physical work, it is mental work, it is just exhausting. The amount of people that you have to deal with as a cashier is a lot. And DD's Discounts, oh my God, those lines were huge. People wanted a deal. So yeah, I felt as disposable as fast fashion when I was a cashier. And I don't know what it is with millennial managers as well, but they love to make things complicated. They criticize you for every small thing, but at the same time, they're always just sitting in their office doing I don't know what. I feel like they go in that room and they like go into Narnia. They live their own little fantasy land, or who knows. You know, I don't want to judge them too bad because, again, they may only be paid $18, $19 for the gruesome work that they have to do throughout a 40-hour work week, or maybe they're paid annually. I don't really know how that works with fast fashion stores, but I'm sure they only get paid per hour, not salary rates. I do want to note, though, that I got paid $15 an hour at 27 years old. That is an incredibly low wage, given that DD's Discount makes an annual revenue of $26 million. $26 million a year, and they have 1,490 employees, and the revenue per employee, so the amount that each worker makes, is roughly $17,450. Can we just take that in? That literally made me sick. They literally put deeply discounted, from their DD's logo into their freaking employee salaries. How is it that people survive off of $17,000? They are keeping their workers in literal poverty rates. Now, again, you can say, okay, these people choose to work there, people choose their job, but if you're submitting a thousand job applications, do we really do these jobs out of choice or maybe out of survival? I think it would be the latter. And you would think, okay, maybe it's just college kids that are working these jobs, or maybe it's high schoolers. No. When I was there, it was everyone in all demographics. It was Latinas, it was African Americans, it was Caucasian people, it was men and women. They were old, they were young, they were coming from so many different backgrounds, and everyone was just looking to get a paycheck, and they were doing what they could with what they had. And for me, I took that job because I was deeply poor. I had moved from a different state back home. I didn't have any money. I was in desperate need of resources. I didn't even have a car. And I spent most of my money on Ubers to get to the job. And a lot of people could relate to my struggle. I would see people being picked up and dropped off. They would get Ubers. They would walk to work. And this is just what we have to endure to get by, to chase the paycheck. And it's sad, but this is our reality. This is 2025 for most youth, for most people. Everyone is going through it, unless you're the top 1%. And the thing is, though, like, even though we're struggling a lot, we do buy a lot from these stores. And I feel like it's because we're so eager for a deal, to have the bang to the buck. Did I say that right? the biggest bang for our buck. There you go. And they would sell everything, like blankets, kid clothes, bras, underwear, sweatpants, shirts, like everything. This is not clearly this is not a promotion for them, but everyone was hungry for a deal. And if a store carries that at a cheaper rate compared to other stores, they're most likely going to buy it. But the thing is, a lot of these items had tags. Have you ever seen those hard tags on clothing that cashiers have to manually take off? Yeah, I hated those. I hated those so much. And cashiers were always given the weirdest setup. Why is the cashiering jobs just so complicated? No matter where you go, no matter where you shop, if there's a hard tag and you bring that thing to the cashier, they're going to struggle for a minute. Okay? So with these tags had to be removed with an ingrained desk device thing that you had to maneuver just precisely so, while other people were like piling stuff up on my hand. I literally was trying to take these tags off, and people would just put stuff literally on top of my hand. Like, do they have some self-awareness? A lot of people don't, or they just don't care, or they just want to put things there and they just kind of like place it on you, like, here you go, you're gonna touch it anyways, right? But yeah, I found myself shoving stuff off my hand quite a lot. You know what the real pressure is? When you forget to take one of the tags off and the alarm goes off, and it's so embarrassing, and the line of people is just staring at you, and you're getting paid $15 an hour. You're getting paid $15 an hour as alarm goes off in the store. So you literally had no room for error in these jobs. And it felt like an impossible process because there is a lot of expectations placed on you if you work at DD's. So for example, they have this whole method that's been standardized, which basically normalizes their madness. So within the training, they primarily focus on 3 main categories: call next customer, scan and bag, and processing tender. It sounds kind of simple, right? It sounds like basic concepts, but let's just go through, let's say, a first day that you're being trained, okay? You're behind the counter, you're wrapped up in the walkie-talkie, You got the lanyard with the keys that are clinking and clicking. The lights are beaming down at you. The line is there. So you're expected, right, to be there for 8 hours too. Yeah, it's a bad day. It's a bad day. So you're told to call each person to your station, which is called next in line. So you have to be very loud or else you're going to be penalized. So you can say something around the lines of, next person in line, next person in line. Okay? You can make it a little bit more Karen-ish so they don't think you're mad at them. Can I have the next person in line? Or can I have the next person? Something like that, okay? Something like that. And then you quickly grab their stuff as they pile it on your hand. And the thing that matters the most in the system is you scan it really freaking quickly within the first second, or they're going to think that you're a lazy mofo, okay? And then you take the tag off, and then you remove the hanger, and then you place that item in the bag. It doesn't sound too complicated, but you're being timed. That's the thing. You're being timed. And then you're supposed to scan the next item super quickly and repeat again. So take off the tag, take off the hanger, and put it in the bag. Super quickly, super quickly, super quickly, super quickly. Can you imagine repeating that over and over again? Because on average, people had from like 5 things to 10 things. Each customer had 5 to 10 things. So it would roughly take me like 3 minutes in total to do everything. But the timer is pressuring you to scan with no delay, even when you have to deal with the hangers, even when the tags are really rough to take off because the setup is impossible. And then with baby clothing, I don't know if you guys shop for babies, there's like 500 hangers on those things if you're shopping in DDs. And so you have to figure it out. You have to be like, is this the one that you take off, or is this the one that gets to be kept by the customer? And it's just, you have to physically also put the hangers from the clothing somewhere. So there's a rack behind you, and you have to literally turn around and hang the hanger so that it doesn't, pile up next to you. And I guess I have a bad habit that I used to work at a thrift store, and I would just take the hanger and like set it next to me in a basket. And then once the customer left, I would organize it, because in the moment it's just like easier to throw it down in the basket versus like physically turning around and placing it neatly behind you in every, transaction or every piece. It was just easier, and there was always long lines at the thrift store. Again, bad habit, but the passive aggressive nature of managers in retail stores is actually very stress inducing and feels like a burden on your shoulder, because they're always watching you. They're always analyzing your performance, especially when you're new and it's your first day, and especially when you're training. They're basically sizing you up to see if they should keep you, if they should schedule you for more hours, if this is a good fit for you, basically. So I have to be proper, I have to be fast, and I have to be organized, basically. And so the process, though, just keeps repeating. And with me, social anxiety and being a cashier doesn't really mix, because people stare at you. And if there's only one cashier at a time, people are sizing you up, people are getting mad at you, people are being like, why is there only one cashier? And they're complaining to you. It's not your fault. You don't want to actively decide, right, to be the only cashier. So then you have to call another coworker on the walkie, which is usually your manager that doesn't want to do anything and is in Narnia. And then the customer that you're currently scanning the things with gets mad at you because you're pausing their transaction to call a coworker. And then the timer on the software that's timing me penalizes me for taking more minutes. So overall, it's just a very, very, very stressful time. And sometimes too, the plastic bags would run out, or people would forget their wallet, or people would want to return things, or they would have questions. So obviously there is some time that is needed for human imperfection, for human moments. And I like to talk to people. I usually feel like that helps. That usually helps me feel a bit more comfortable, because that way their stares don't just like get to me, and I can reduce my panic by having like a human interaction, basically, because I'm no longer in my head. But that's not possible when you literally have to go super fast just scanning everything. So I really couldn't be like, hi, how are you doing? Did you find everything okay? Like, how was your experience? But the thing is too, like the main three categories I talked about, call next person, scan and bag, and processing tender, was my value. That was like the worth I had at that store. Like I could not do anything outside of that, or else I was literally told I was not doing my job. And again, like I was expected so much. Like I literally was told by the manager that I should get 100% in all categories, which I don't know how that's humanly possible, because when I was a student in classes, when I was in college, I never got 100% in classes like every single day and every single exam. So to be expected to perform for 8 hours in a very tough scenario in all the categories all the time, given that there's always human imperfection with people forgetting things or delaying things, or the lines just make it impossible to do everything perfectly, like 100% expectations was like way too much. And sometimes they wanted even more than 100%. So they literally were testing how fast I scanned, how loud I called people, and how well I processed the transaction, because the managers would penalize you if there was a payment missing, or if there was a credit card that didn't scan through, or for whatever reason, like whatever the processing was for the cash, they would literally penalize you. And so it was kind of natural for me to get 80% or 90%, and I would know because the manager would come up to me and give me a receipt that would tell me the scores of the three main areas, and she would come like every 2-3 hours giving me these slips. And it was actually really just tiring, because if you've been there for like 2-3 hours already, you already want a break, you already are frustrated with the whole process. And then to have the slip and be like, oh, you can improve this 80% to an 85% or to a 90%, it was just adding on top of everything else. Especially if you're a new hire, you're still like trying to get a balance of things, you're still trying to get like a flow. So yeah, it was just like constant. It was so constant. And then once they gave you that slip, the managers would just go back to their office and just watch you through the cameras and keep printing slips for every freaking worker. So the thing is too, like, these expectations are not possible to sustain on a human level. Like, they expected you to be a machine, basically. And I think maybe it was realistic to more so expect like 90% rates of success versus anything. But yeah, these slips were horrible. And if you didn't improve in each phase of like when they would come back to you, they would get more aggressive and say that I need to do things better or go faster. Sometimes they would just pick on me for being too quiet when I called people. So they would give me like a 60% when that's just like a subjective thing. But I don't really know if they were watching me through the cameras or if they were just like giving me a random number, because I would never see them. I also think that being soft-spoken in retail is something that's really not accepted. I think there's a extrovert ideal when it comes to working in retail, because you need to have that customer service job voice. You need to be like super friendly, as if like you're working in Starbucks. Like there's just so many expectations. And for me, like, I never like to talk to people in front of a crowd. Like, that just makes me so uncomfortable. So people would just hear me and I just like would panic. I was like, oh my God, I'm shouting. Like, I don't want to say this. But if I got the job done, like, I got the job done, right? But yeah, like working there 6 hours, 7 hours, I just don't know how we can like bearably go through that every single day. Like, robotic mechanization is a theory that we have to explore within the malls and retail brands, because we definitely are humans. We definitely have thoughts and emotions. We do get drained. We don't have the same like performance levels as we started in the beginning of our shift, and to continuously keep at like an 80% or 90% or to even improve as the day goes on, it's so cruel. And it doesn't take account like fatigue, hunger, the need for rest, the need to sit. I think human labor rights really have to take account like feelings a lot more. And right now we're just logistically looking at like, oh, you only deserve a 15-minute break if you've worked more than 7 hours. I don't know who came up with that rule, but like, we need more than 15 minutes after like 7 hours. 7 hours? I personally haven't even slept 7 hours in a day. Imagine working 7 hours. That's just crazy. And also, there's so many returns in fast fashion stores because everything is made so cheaply. A lot of people are not content with the fit and the quality, and they get very disappointed after the deal is done. After they buy everything, they're like, yeah, this was not a good decision. So I feel like the regret of dopamine purchases is something that we experience a lot. And they would return different things like pants, BB clothes, coats, toys, even. Like, it was just a mix of cheap things they no longer wanted. But DD specializes in that. They specialize in what's called first quality in seasons, and they're directly positioned to compete with stores like Dollar Tree, like Dollar General, and then 98-cent stores across the nation. And they do this because like Dollar Tree, like Dollar General, they don't sell clothing, they don't sell home goods. So they're like targeting the same people, but like knowing that their niche is clothing that no one else is offering. And I feel like the older generation, maybe migrants, don't really buy from Shein or online stores. So they definitely are filling a niche that no one has tapped into before. And yeah, like at first I was also really excited to go to these type of stores. I'm like, as a low income consumer, like if I want to find a deal in a physical store, let's just go to DD's. But again, I wouldn't recommend this store to anyone, to be honest. The things are just so cheap. The working conditions are just very, very exploitative. The scheduling was just so weird. I never had a lunch. I never had like a good sense of how to pace my energy, because sometimes they would tell me, hey, take your break right now. Okay, thank you. So yeah, it just made it hard to like know how to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And the thing is, like, people are not dumb. People can see the chaos in like these stories. People are intuitive, they're smart, especially those that want a deal. They're often aware of their surroundings. They're aware of how to stay safe. They're often struggling and surviving. So these hyper alert shoppers, they don't literally play around. Like, they see what's going on. They see the stress. They see how fast you're doing things and how you're struggling with the tags, with the hangers, and the bagging. And oh my God, the bagging was so troublesome too, because people didn't want certain things to be mixed. So they would tell me, don't put this with this, don't put that with that. And then they would complain about the bag sizes, because we had like a small, medium, and large. They're like, why did you put it in this huge bag? Just put it in a normal one. So I literally had to take things out and like put it how they wanted. Some people would get mad that things were not folded, like I had time to fold, but some people really like that. So yeah, I would get side-eyed a lot when I wasn't doing what they wanted, really. Like, one of the biggest indicators, though, I feel like that they didn't like was when I would just dump their stuff. I would just go whoosha. So yeah, I did have a lot of people annoyed with me, but the thing is, like, we're applying to jobs after job after jobs after jobs. You just trying to like figure out where we can have a career, and like no one wants to work at this shop. And then to have the threat of being fired because you're not at 100% performance rate, like, come on, like, this is just inhumane. But there is also security concerns too, because with the first thing that we were tested, we were told to call people over while the other person was still paying. So there was always two people at the beginning and end of their transaction. So the two customers would basically stand next to each other, and one was finalizing their payment and the other one was putting their stuff on the counter to begin their transaction. So those paying with credit card or debit card, because it's just private information, they would get very defensive and like literally move the card reader over and then side-eye the next customer over and like look visibly uncomfortable, because they just like don't want to share their personal credit card information. And I didn't even have time to give the receipt to the customer that was finishing their transaction because I was already scanning and untagging the clothing from the next person that was standing right there. So as you can tell, it was just very confusing for like first time shoppers, or if they've been there before, they would just like take it like it was normal. But like in every store that I've ever been to, the cashier always hands you the receipt. You know what I mean? The thing is too, like there needs to be a bit more confidentiality and personal service with people, because I don't want someone like right next to me when I'm paying. Like I understood the pains of these customers. And I do want to note that someone else experienced something very similar on Reddit. At any_caterpillar_535 said, I got my first job as a part-time cashier at DD's Discount a couple of months ago, and I realized very quickly I was going to hate it. One thing to note is that I have OCD and also autism. Not good conditions to have at this place, or retail in general, but especially at this place. So this was my first job ever, especially after a whole year of job hunting in this abysmal market. I should have found it suspicious that this place was willing to take someone like me, a 25-year-old with no official experience, but I was too grateful to notice. In the end, I was lucky enough to have good coworkers, but the real hell lined with the company and its policies. The first time I was short, and when I got stuck on a register with a messed up hard tag remover, so I must have made a mistake when handling a customer's cash because I didn't want my time rates to be too low as the line was growing. The second time was when, after the first warning for being short in the register, they decided it was a good idea to put the nervous new hire on schedule for Sunday, one of our busiest days. That didn't end well. I think that's what prevented me from being able to work the last week of my 2-week notice. They didn't immediately relieve me of my duties, but they stopped giving me shifts after the last one they had already added to my schedule. Either way, I'm just glad I don't work there anymore. During the last couple weeks I worked there, I had so much stress in my body. I was getting night terrors trying to nap after work. Like as I was drifting to sleep, my arms would raise up on their own right before I wake up gasping for air. It was rough. Okay. Painful story. But the thing is, I do want to touch on some takeaways in this podcast. I think it's a perfect storm that has been built from corporate indifference and a total ignorance of human limitations and disregard for human rights. And also it's built upon a business model that relies on high volume, low margin sales in a very frantic environment. And this pressure falls on workers, most likely the cashiers, who are the final, most visible choke point in the system. They're literally choking at the system that you have created. And we're not just processing transactions. We're literally absorbing the frustration of a chaotic fast fashion system. And we're being measured on top of everything else that we're experiencing. We are not designed to be machines. We're designed to be people. And honestly, I would say too, the psychological toll, I feel like was the worst for me. The constant low-grade hum of anxiety from starting the moment I walked in, wondering in my head, am I being loud enough for my manager? I wonder what rate I'll get in the next 2 hours. I wonder when I'll get my break. I wonder if a hard tag is not going to be removed in time for the transaction. I wonder if I'm going to miss one and the alarm is going to go off. Also, the next in line system wasn't just like a procedure, it was more of a performance, and I was just being watched and judged on this performance. And I did not sign up to be an actress, to be in the limelight, you know? But for context, I do want to note that DD's has been around since 2004, and they are operating under Ross, Dress for Less. I'm sure you've heard of them, but by 2017, they've expanded very rapidly, to be honest. They now have 200 stores across the nation in over 15 states, which include New Jersey and Pennsylvania. on the East Coast. So they're everywhere. They're everywhere. And all these items sold in their stores are purchased from suppliers after they've been produced and imported to other retailers. But Ross itself doesn't have any direct control over the manufacturing of these products, and they do require suppliers to supposedly uphold ethical standards, but that's only contractually and through enforcement. I don't know what that specifically means. I couldn't find any other information, but it just seems very vague. And I'm sure that they're not using ethical practices, because if things are made that fast, it's not ethical. Also, I do want to say that DD's Discount prides itself in its price. So obviously things are going to be cheap. They supposedly pride themselves in customer service, which is ironic given my stories. And they pride themselves in topmost quality, which, again, it's kind of odd if you're a fast fashion store, because how are you going to do quality stuff and cheap? I think it's a kind of a contradiction, you know? But yeah, I think it's very ironic what their message is. You can't have cheap prices and topmost quality. I feel like those are two sides of the same coin. You gotta choose one. You gotta choose which one you'll face and show to the world. But I do want to say, to end this podcast episode, that every low cashier rate should not be kept like that. I think we need to pay frontline workers more. We need to really respect how much they have to deal with, how they get harassed by customers and managers alike. I think it's personally a failure for the company to keep these practices. But yeah, I learned so much within this short period of my torture at retail hell. I think I only lasted around like a month or so. I just couldn't do it after a moment. I think I only earned like $1,000 and some with all my weird hours. So to end off the video, I do want to say, please don't shop in these stores. They're the most horrendous that I've ever seen. And if you're making on average $17,000 a year, oh my gosh, that is a struggle. But at the end of the day, we're applying, we're taking on what we can. So just consider this story as just a reminder that we're all just human, we're all just trying. And I wish you the best during these times. I really do. We're not machines. Yeah. Do you want to see the kitty that's been disturbing my peace this entire time? I've been trying to like control the cat that's been almost knocking my camera over. But let me show you before I end it. Augustus. Hi, cutie. The camera was right on that thing. This one right there. Augustus. Hi, cutie. Cutie patootie. Hi. Now he's being shy. Bye, guys.